Buenas tardes a todos. Antes de nada, pedir disculpas por el retraso. No sería un seminario de la Torre del Virrey si no tuviéramos problemas con todo. Y pues eso, disculparnos y no voy a alargarme mucho en nada. Todos sabemos por qué estamos aquí. Will, muy generosamente y con una muestra de amistad que no hay palabras para expresar la gratitud que se siente en la sala esta tarde. Ha querido pasar unos días con nosotros y no hay palabras que puedan expresar esto para mí, al menos, como traductora y amiga. Vamos a encargarnos hoy de un texto difícil, el Filebo. Es un texto, como hace un momento acaba de recalcar Will, del que no tenemos señal alguna de la adaptación dramática o muchas indicaciones que nos hagan asirnos a alguna interpretación fija. Y simplemente decir que los diálogos ya tienen unos 4 años. Empezamos por el Protágoras, pasando por, acabamos el primer año con el guión, en el que nos encontramos con nosotros mismos como muy primerizos hermeneutas de Platón. Luego llegamos con un sprint hasta el Clitofonte en el segundo año. Luego atacamos la República lo mejor que pudimos en el tercero. Y en el cuarto decidimos tomárnoslo un poco más con calma. Y hemos llegado hasta el Filebo. Eric me pidió hacer el Filebo hace unos 2 años, cuando Antonio habló de Santayana y la ortodoxia del pensamiento o algo así. Y, en fin, desde entonces está aguantándose las ganas de hacer el Filebo, así que le dije, ¿por qué no te encargas, junto con Alman, de hacer este diario? Muy fácil, por otra parte. Y Eric, para quien lo habrá visto ya en el libro 4 de la República, se encargó del libro 4. Rick, que hace de su traductor siempre que viene Alman, se encargó de las cartas. Así que todos conocemos a los 4 personas que estamos en la sala, en la mesa, en la sala de intérpretes. Así que muchas gracias, Will, por todo.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, so my paper is called The Problem of the Philebus. The secret to writing books is to always keep in mind that you are never writing a book. You are instead, for example, writing the 3rd paragraph of the 2nd section of the 4th chapter of a book. In other words, the best plan is to begin with an outline and to know in advance the order in which you are going to discuss the subject matter of your book. What you are therefore writing is always a specific part of the whole structure and limited to the specific topic that your previously constructed outline demands. In the case of Plato the teacher, however, it was necessary to have a preliminary sense of the reading order of Plato's dialogues well before creating an outline. And it was this preliminary necessity that created for me the strictly personal version of the problem of Philebus, the impersonal subject of tonight's talk. Since an important aspect of the reading order project was to restore the dialogues that 19th century philology had pronounced inauthentic, there was never any doubt that my reconstruction would preserve the 8th tetralogy of Thrasyllus, Cleitophon, Republic, Timaeus, and Critias. If this was easy, the difficult part was to figure out what follows Critias, a dialogue that breaks off in mid-sentence and which therefore ends without an ending. Cleitophon had done virtually the same thing, but in that case at least, there was an obvious secret, and I followed Thrasyllus in finding Socrates' otherwise missing response to Cleitophon in Republic. But in the case of Critias, there was no such obvious sequel, and since I had come to regard its most salient feature to be that it ends without an ending. It was natural to follow it with a dialogue that likewise begins without a beginning. And in this respect, Philebus is unique. It begins in mid-conversation, with Socrates referring to what he says has been said earlier, but which is inaudible to us, much as the speech of Zeus is inaudible to us, thanks to the abrupt mid-sentence non-ending of Critias. The initial hypothesis, then, was that Philebus directly follows Critias because the dialogue without a beginning naturally follows the one that ends without an ending. This preliminary solution to the problem, this preliminary solution to the reading order of Plato's dialogues ultimately proved to be inadequate, as I discovered while creating an outline for the Guardians in Action. The easiest way to explain how this discovery came about is to say quite simply that I read Plato's Critias. Naturally, I had already read it at least twice, but always before in translation. Reading, of course, is a transitive verb, and it therefore makes no sense to make statements like, I am a fast or I am a slow reader. The important thing is that such descriptions are determined by what it is that you are reading. In this case, it was reading Critias in Greek, as so often before in the case of Plato's dialogues, that changed my understanding of it and opened the door to the ultimate solution, that Critias was followed directly not by Philebus, but by Phaedrus. As is already made clear in Timaeus, Egyptian priests were the source of the tale of ancient Athens that will finally be told in Critias, but it had never crossed my mind that this provenance creates a connection to what Phaedrus says to Socrates regarding the story of Theuth and the alphabet, about Socrates' capacity to invent Egyptian tales. But it was the delightful description of ancient Attica in Critias, the vocabulary-rich passages about Attica's formerly well-watered ancient greenery that made its connection to Phaedrus unmistakable. And the sign of this connection is the fact that the river Ilissus, in which Socrates and Phaedrus will cool their toes, is only mentioned in one other dialogue, Plato's Critias. And since I have my friend Ricardo here, I will now break into a digression. Here we go. The first time and only time that I've ever been in Greece.
La primera y única vez que he estado en Grecia.
I was picked up in Thessaloniki by my son Philip.
Fue recogido en Thessaloniki por su hijo Philip,
who I had previously informed that I was very, 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 very sick with food poisoning.
al que había informado que estaba muy enfermo. Sí, perdón. Que digo que fue recogido por su hijo, a quien había informado de que estaba bastante enfermo después de haberse intoxicado con comida.
I won't tell you how many times I visited the very well-scented bushes in between the various highways on the road from Thessaloniki to Athens for the purpose of discharging my illness.
Nos ahorraremos todo el cuento sobre cómo estuvo abonando las tierras de Grecia abundantemente.
Suffice it to say that when I wasn't complaining about my wretched stomach and my headache,
Digamos solamente que cuando no estaba quejándose por su estómago y el dolor de cabeza,
I was saying, God, it must have been so much greener back in Plato's time.
lo único que decía es, Dios mío, tenía que ser mucho más verde en la época de Platón.
These hills make Extremadura look like a Garden of Eden.
Estas colinas hacen aparecer a Extremadura el jardín del Edén.
Trees and the fountains and the beautiful flowers, like where did they all go? It must have all disappeared.
¿Dónde están los árboles, las fuentes, las flores? Todo tiene que haber desaparecido.
And of course, what happened when I finally read the Critias is I realized that Plato would be imagining a much greener Attica back in his day 2,000 years ago.
Y cuando leyó el Critias se dio cuenta de que también Platón se está imaginando una Grecia mucho más verde hace 2000 años.
So much for my first digression.
Está aquí la primera digresión.
And since Phaedrus begins with the speech of Lysias hidden in Phaedrus's garments, the obvious preliminary observation that Critias had ended abruptly was made more specific. It ends before the beginning of an otherwise missing speech, leaving aside that one of the surviving speeches of Lysias, who of course is a major figure in the Phaedrus, records the fact that Critias and the 30, that's the 30 tyrants, had been responsible for the death of Lysias's brother Polemarchus, immortalized in the Republic. There were 3 connections now that joined Critias to Phaedrus: a missing speech, the cooling waters of the Ilissus, and Egyptian tales. Thus far, then, no reference to the problem of Philebus. On the other hand, the displacement of Philebus by Phaedrus does point to some significant connections between the two, enough, indeed, that it might have momentarily seemed possible simply to switch the two. In other words, to go from Critias to Phaedrus to Philebus, as opposed to the way I had originally thought, which was from Critias to Philebus to Phaedrus. The first that occurred to me involved false speaking. What makes Philebus problematic from my perspective is its rehabilitation of becoming and the blurring of the difference between being and becoming, writ large in the famous formulas Genesis eis ousion and Maikte kaigeganemene ousia. That's a mouthful. So let's open up another little digression here. For those of you that, so Plato's pretty famous for dividing being from becoming. In other words, that there's this eternal realm of unchanging, truly existent stuff that's not of this world.
Platón es muy famoso por dividir el ser y el llegar a ser. El ser esta cosa que no cambia, ya sabéis, de qué va el rollo.
And that, the world we live in is a kind of, well, you could call it a world of a dark cave, or you could call it a world of a river that you can't step in twice. Let's give it to Heraclitus and just say it's a world of permanent becoming.
Y el mundo en el que vivimos, que pues utilizando los términos de Heráclito, es el mundo del devenir constante.
Where nothing really is what it seems to be.
Donde nada es lo que parece ser.
Where the most beautiful woman in the world doesn't look very good if she's had 6 martinis and you wake her up after vomiting at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so
Sí, donde la más hermosa de las mujeres no parece tan guapa después de 6 martines y cuando se despierta a las 3 de la mañana.
So Plato is this guy, like they sometimes call him a 2-world Platonist.
Okay. A veces se habla del platonismo de 2 mundos.
It's really not that he's a 2-world Platonist, really. It's just that he doesn't have much confidence in this world.
No es que sea un mundo, no es que sea un Platón de 2 mundos, sino que no tiene demasiada confianza en este.
Because there's something higher.
Porque hay algo más alto.
So anything that tends to move in the direction of Aristotle.
Así que todo lo que parece que se mueve en dirección a Aristóteles.
Where the idea of man is embodied in Ricardo.
Donde el ideal de hombre está encarnado en mí.
And where the physician can cure Ricardo because the idea of man is embodied in Ricardo.
Y donde los médicos pueden curarme, ojalá, porque la idea de hombre está encarnada en
mí. But that there is no idea of man in some other world.
Pero no hay idea de hombre en otro mundo.
Well, if you think that cuts against Plato,
si crees que esto va en contra de Platón,
you might as well be Aristotle.
Puede que seas el propio Aristóteles.
And let's just say that Plato and Aristotle are very different on this point.
Y digamos que Platón y Aristóteles son muy distintos en esto.
So is that enough? Just that Plato, the way I would put it in my simple-minded way, is that Plato made a safe space for a kingdom not of this world.
por decirlo en forma sencilla, diríamos que Platón guardó un lugar para un rey que no es de este mundo.
And that is incidentally why most of the smart Greeks that initially were book learning guys that became Christians
Y ese es un motivo por el que muchos de los intelectuales y sabios griegos que estaban leyendo y que se iban a convertir en cristianos
were already Platonists.
ya eran platonistas.
Okay. So enough on that. Now we're done. Thus far, then, no reference to the problem of Philebus. On the other hand, the displacement of Philebus by Phaedrus does point to some significant connections between the two, enough indeed that it might have momentarily seemed possible to switch the two. The first that occurred to me was the problem of false speaking. What makes Philebus problematic from my perspective is its rehabilitation of becoming and the blurring of the difference between being and becoming, writ large in the famous formulas Genesis eis ousia at 26d8 and mekte kai gegenemene ousia at 27b8 or 9. In the context of these difficulties, the need for a palinode in Phaedrus suggested that Plato may have prepared the reader for Philebus not only in Timaeus, where a similar valorization of becoming is present, but also in Phaedrus, and more specifically, in the need for a palinode. Now, in case you guys don't know what a palinode is, here's another digression. In case you guys don't know what a palinode is,
Por la palinodia.
it's not a palindrome.
No es un palíndromo.
A palindrome is something that means the same thing going forward and going back.
Palíndromo es algo que puedes leer igual del derecho que del revés.
Which the greatest one is in the great cathedral that's now a mosque in Istanbul.
El más importante de los cuales se encuentra en la gran catedral que ahora es una mezquita en Estambul.
Which says in English, wash your sin, wash your lawlessnesses, not only your face.
Dice algo así como, lava tus pecados, lava tus fechorías, no solamente tu cara.
Which I mention for only one reason.
Eso lo menciono por un motivo.
So that I get a chance to say it in Greek.
Para decirlo en griego.
Which I think is fun to say. So I'll say it again. Okay. A palinode is different. A palinode is when you make a false statement and you say, shit, look, I regret it. I'm taking it back. I confess. I was wrong. Here's the real story.
La palinodia es el momento en el que tú dices algo para inmediatamente después arrepentir de tener la oportunidad de decir lo que de verdad querías decir.
So that happens in Phaedrus. Like he makes a speech that, you know, the question is, should you sexually gratify a guy that loves you, or should you sexually gratify a guy that doesn't love you? And like the first speech, like you shouldn't sexually gratify a guy that loves you, is that lovers are jealous and like they'll keep you from your family and like they'll do. It's much safer to, you know, be in love with a guy that doesn't even love you.
Dice que, por ejemplo, en la cuestión de ¿deberías gratificar sexualmente a alguien que te ama o a alguien que no te ama? Dice, bueno, gratificar a alguien que te ama es un problema porque el amor, los amantes suelen ser celosos, por tanto te mantendría alejado de tu familia, de tus amigos, así que es más fácil zumbarse a alguien que no te ama y así te ahorras el problema.
And by the way, for the girls in my audience, I'd like to give you a word of advice.
Para las mujeres en la audiencia,
when a guy says to you, I really, really like you a lot, not just as a friend.
Cuando un muchacho dice, me gustas no solamente como amiga.
What I recommend that you say, even if you like him as more than a friend.
Lo que deberías decir, aunque os guste más que como un amigo.
Just say, I like you too, but only as a friend.
Es decir, tú también me gustas, pero solo como amigo.
See what he does. See what he does.
Y a ver qué pasa.
90%, 95% of all men in the world will refuse to talk to you ever again. They'll walk away. They'll treat you like you're a piece of dog shit.
El 95% de los hombres rechazarán volver a hablaros y os tratarán muy mal.
And therefore you will have dodged a bullet by playing that game.
Y por tanto habréis esquivado la bala.
So even if you, and by the way, my advice to you is when a girl says, I like you too, Joe, but only as a friend.
Así que, chavales, cuando una chica os diga, me gustas, pero solo como amigo,
that you say, well, I got to admit, I would I want to have more, but I'd be honored to be your friend. If all I could do is hold your hand and listen to you talk, I'd be happy. So, yes, I want more, but I'd be happy to be your friend.
Los trucos sucios de Will. Lo que debéis hacer es decir, no, esperaba más, pero desde luego estaré contento de sostener vuestra cándida mano y nada más.
So pardon me for my digressions, but I find my own paper pretty boring, so I'm trying to spice it up a little bit.
Vamos a decir, pero encuentra su propia lección suficientemente aburrida como para darle un poquito de alegría y vista.
Okay, so for a palinode in Phaedrus suggested that Plato may have prepared the reader for Philebus not only in Timaeus, but also in Phaedrus, and more specifically in the need for a palinode in response to Socrates' first speech. This hypothesis was strengthened by the negative remarks about love, eros, in Philebus, creating a connection with Socrates' first speech, his anti-erotic speech. I won't state that this initial hypothesis proved to be a dead end, but another connection between Philebus and Phaedrus would prove more significant in retrospect. The same Egyptian tale that had already connected Phaedrus to Timaeus Critias was present also in Philebus, by which I mean, of course, the story about youth and the invention of the alphabet. To hear Socrates telling the same story in two such different ways. And by the way, do you want to hear the story of Theuth? Because then we got to open up another digression. The story of Theuth in Plato's Phaedrus is excellent.
Quien quiera oír la historia de Theuth, que diga sí.
Yes. Theuth comes to the pharaoh and says, I got this invention, man. It's going to prolong the memory of man.
Theuth va al faraón y dice, Chato, tengo un invento tremendo que va a prolongar la memoria del ser humano.
It's called the alphabet.
Se llama el alfabeto.
And this is how it works.
Y funciona así.
And, the king listens to this stuff and he just says, well, Theuth, this just goes to prove it takes one guy to make an invention and another guy to figure out how that invention is going to be used.
Y el faraón le escucha y al final dice, Chato, una cosa se prueba con esto, que hace falta una persona para inventar algo y otra para saber cómo va a funcionar ese invento.
That this alphabet is going to infinitely extend the memory of mankind?
¿Me dices que este invento va a prolongar infinitamente la memoria del ser humano?
This damn invention of yours is going to destroy the memory of
Este
mankind.
invento tuyo la va a destruir.
Kids are going to whip out their cell phones and they're going to find what year Massimo Alexandra was alive or when Michelangelo built the Sistine Chapel, and they're not going to do anything anymore.
Los niños van a ir al teléfono móvil y van a buscar todas las fechas para el examen de inglés y no les va a hacer falta memorizar nada.
I think it's a good story.
El final de la memoria.
The end of memory. That I understand. Yeah.
Al revés.
Great, I got it. Where were we? To hear Socrates telling the same, when he tells it in the Philebus, it's boring. The king doesn't make the objection. He just describes the invention of the alphabet. And there's no dialogue about whether it's a good or a bad thing.
En el Filebo no está esa parte interesante del diálogo final sobre cómo va en realidad el alfabeto a ser bueno o malo. Sencillamente se cuenta la invención.
And it's a little weird since the Philebus appears to be about the good.
Y es un poco raro, puesto que el Filebo parece que va sobre el bien.
It suggested the possibility that Plato's readers were listening to Socrates at two very different times, stages, or ages. So once the decision was made to follow Phaedrus with Parmenides and not with Philebus directly, the solution to this Theuth discrepancy, he being the inventor of the alphabet, began to become obvious. With his readers introduced to the young Socrates and Parmenides, they were hearing a younger Socrates in Philebus, and thus that the charming manner in which he told the story of the alphabet in Phaedrus indicated that our hero had become more charming with age, a conception amply borne out by the soon-to-die philosopher we unforgettably meet in Apology, Crito, and Phaedo. In other words, basically, that Socrates became more entertaining as he got old. In effect, then, the revision to the reading order as originally conceived amounted simply to this. Instead of placing Philebus immediately after Timaeus Critias, it would now be moved back so as to follow Parmenides, itself preceded by Phaedrus. The original thinking behind placing Parmenides immediately before Cratylus was that Plato was drawing attention to the contrast, emphasized both by me and by other historians of philosophy, between the unchanging being of Parmenides and the flux of becoming described by Heraclitus. Open up a slight digression in case you've ever studied the history of philosophy.
En caso de que estudiéis historia de filosofía,
The easiest way to teach it, and very common in the 19th century,
la forma más fácil y común de enseñar
was actually to point out that Plato had just made a synthesis of Parmenides and Heraclitus,
era decir que Platón había hecho una síntesis entre Parménides y Heráclito
and that he had surrendered the phenomenal world of the visible world to Heraclitus,
y que había dado el mundo fenoménico a Heráclito,
and said that everything is in flux and everything is changing and nothing abides.
diciendo que todo es un flujo constante.
But there was a being that really is what it is,
Pero hay un ser que en realidad es lo que es
and that Plato embodied that permanence in his ideas.
y que él lo encarna en sus ideas.
And you know, to the extent that you can study the history of philosophy today and not hear that,
Y hasta en tanto que hayáis estudiado la historia de la filosofía historia y no hayáis escuchado esto,
is a sign that Plato is not being very well taught these days.
es que si no lo hubiera escuchado, se hubiera enseñado bien, pero como lo seguimos escuchando, sigue sin enseñarse correctamente.
Because although it's a little bit of an oversimplification,
Porque es un poco una sobresimplificación.
it's pretty true.
Es bastante cierto esto. Es una simplificación.
Okay. This contrast, in other words, between Parmenides and Heraclitus, gave way to a different conception and a more text-immanent connection, not so much while preparing to write The Guardians in Action, as late in the process of actually writing it. It is not until Theaetetus, the dialogue Theaetetus, that Heraclitus is compared, juxtaposed, and opposed to Parmenides. But even though Heraclitus is not mentioned in Philebus, I gradually realized that phrases like genesis eis ousia and mekte kai genemene ousia were already preparing Plato's readers for Heraclitean flux before introducing him by name in Cratylus. So just to make sure we got that, the name of the first book of the Bible,
El nombre del primer libro de la Biblia,
the book of Genesis,
el libro de Génesis,
it's the Greek word for becoming.
Génesis es la palabra griega para llegar a ser.
So Genesis is what's always changing,
Génesis es aquello que siempre está cambiando,
whereas ousia is what actually permanently exists.
mientras que la usía es aquello que existe permanentemente.
So that when you get a phrase in the Philebus like Genesis eis ousion,
Así que cuando encontramos esta frase en el Filebo,
or hey kai genemene ousia,
o esta otra,
it's a contradiction in technical terms.
es una contradicción en términos técnicos.
It's like saying loud silence
Es como decir un silencio atronador,
or intelligent stupidity,
o estupidez inteligente,
military intelligence.
o inteligencia militar.
That's a joke.
Oxímoron.
Anyway, let's see here. In fact, this movement towards motion, in other words, rehabilitating becoming, had begun earlier, as I noted in chapter 2 of The Guardians in Action. Quote, I'm quoting myself. Perhaps the most prescient thing that Plato allows Critias to suggest is that Timaeus is equated ta onta, meaning the things that are, with ta ionta, which means the things that are going places. It's totally anti-Platonic. Encounter this anti-Parmenidean conflation of the things that move and the things that are in Phaedrus. It will be legitimized etymologically in Cratylus, ontologically in Sophist, and will finally undergo apotheosis in Laws Epinomis, all as part of an ongoing movement towards motion. Close quote, thank God. That's from my book, or one of them. But the point is, and it's, kind of basic to my reading of Plato,
El punto es muy importante para la forma en la que él lee a Platón.
is that after Plato kind of teaches you the truth in Republics, book 6 and 7,
Es que después de que Platón te enseñe la verdad en los libros sexto y séptimo de la República,
he tests you in the so-called late dialogues
se pone a prueba en los llamados diálogos tardíos
to see if you'll hold on to the distinctions that he's taught you in the Republic.
para ver si eres consciente de las distinciones que te ha enseñado en la República.
You know, the dominant view of Plato is that he changed his mind.
La visión dominante es que Platón cambió su forma de pensar en sus últimos diálogos.
That first he was a Socratic,
Que al principio era un socrático,
then he was a Platonist,
después un platonista
and then he turned into Aristotle.
y después se convierte en Aristóteles.
And like I didn't buy any of it,
Y no se ha tragado nada de eso.
and wrote 5 volumes trying to prove that
Y
that
ha
wasn't
escrito
true.
5 libracos intentando probar que eso está equivocado.
Whether I succeeded in proving any of that, it's not for me to say.
Si ha tenido éxito o no, no le corresponde.
It depends on you.
Depende de vosotros.
But that was my purpose.
Pero era su propósito.
Back to the paper. Notice that Philebus is not mentioned here. This was an oversight, only partially corrected at the end of the chapter. Quoting me again, quote, the movement toward motion begun in Timaeus and the great speech of Phaedrus will only reach its apogee in the Eleatic and Athenian strangers. Before encountering them, the gardens will be prepared by the post-Philebus Socrates in Cratylus and Theaetetus. Here, the flux doctrine will be explicitly linked to Heraclitus for the first time in the dialogues. I would have done a lot better to have quoted the first sentence of J.B. Skemp's Plato's later theory of motion. He wrote that in 1942. Quote, this is Skemp now. To speak of Plato's later philosophy of motion, his book is called Plato's Later Philosophy of Motion. And he begins the book in this wonderful way that I didn't know. I hadn't read when I wrote The Guardians in Action. To speak of Plato's later philosophy of motion is not to imply that he had an earlier doctrine and modified it in the cosmology of the Timaeus and in the natural theology of laws, close quote. In other words, the movement towards motion is something new.
En otras palabras, el movimiento hacia el movimiento es algo nuevo.
And on my account, it was designed to test
Y según él estaba diseñado para poner a prueba
whether you would sell out Plato
si habíais vendido el auténtico Platón
to the world,
al mundo.
because the world is always changing.
Porque el mundo siempre está cambiando.
We're growing old and we're dying.
Nos hacemos mayores y nos
We
morimos.
were born and now we're going to croak.
Hemos nacido y la vamos a enroscar.
The year abides.
Nada prevalece.
And Plato was unique in the whole history of philosophy for saying there's something that will stay forever.
Y Platón era único en la historia de la filosofía al decir que había algo que sí que prevalece, que siempre permanece.
And the world doesn't like people that testify against the world.
Y al mundo no le gusta la gente que testifica en contra del mundo.
And I think Jesus said something to that effect.
Y creo que Jesús dijo algo al respecto.
So, and to have pondered the fact that he concluded its first chapter, this is Skemp again, with a section devoted to Philebus. I should have paid more attention to Skemp. Well, you can't read everything. The closest I came was in the last paragraph of chapter 4. By following Philebus with Cratylus, Plato helps us to see that Heraclitus has already made his entrance, albeit only in disguise, when it comes to Philebus, the hardest test of all. Close quote. So, what makes Philebus so difficult is that Socrates is talking. It's not Timaeus. It's not any of the strangers. And he's talking horseshit.
Lo que hace el Filebo difícil es que el que habla es Sócrates, no ninguna otra persona, y está diciendo mentiras.
Now, this is not, thank you. Thank you for cleaning that up, bro. And by the way, this isn't it's really shouldn't be that revolutionary to say that Plato is depicting Socrates speaking horse shit.
Yeah.
Mentira.
Yeah. No debería ser tan revolucionario decir que Platón describe a Sócrates diciendo mentiras.
Where's Ismail? Is Ismail here? Ismail? Hey, Ismail. So Ismail's favorite Platonic dialogue is the Hippias Major.
El diálogo favorito de Ismael es el Hippias Mayor.
And that's a great dialogue because it's the first time where Plato makes it really obvious that Socrates is talking horseshit.
Y es un gran diálogo porque es la primera vez que Platón muestra a Sócrates diciendo
That's this lie about how he's got this neighbor that lives with him that's always asking him questions.
te inventa ese vecino que tiene que siempre le está preguntando de todo sin ninguna vergüenza.
The only person in the universe that's not aware that Socrates is lying.
Y la única persona en el universo que no se da cuenta de que está mintiendo es Hippias.
Anyway, while working on my most recent book, which I guess was about Plutarch, I was delighted to find in Plutarch's dialogue on the E in Delphi a passage about, quote, the missing fifth, close quote, a principle of division or diacrisis to join with the unlimited, the limited, the mixture, and the cause of their mixture described in Philebus. So Philebus is really famous for saying, there's the limit, there's the unlimited, there's the mixture of the two. That's what, look, the whole history of philosophy is dedicated to people that try to show that the universe is made up of two contradictory things.
La historia de la filosofía está dedicada a gente que intentaba demostrar que el universo está formado por dos principios contradictorios.
It's like Aristotle's form and matter.
Como Aristóteles, forma y materia.
Like the Stoics have a version.
Como la versión de los estoicos.
And everybody knows that yin and yang is the same damn thing.
Y todo el mundo sabe que el yin y el yang es la misma maldita cosa.
So, like, everybody wants to make a dialectical unity of two opposite things. It's the oldest game in the philosophical book.
Todo el mundo quiere hacer una unión dialéctica de dos opuestos. Es el juego más antiguo en el mundo filosófico.
Because what everybody wants from a philosophy is an account of the whole.
Porque lo que todo el mundo quiere en filosofía es un relato del todo.
And they ultimately want to show what one thing all things are.
Y al final lo que quiere mostrar es cómo todas las cosas son esa cosa.
And that's why Thales begins philosophy by saying, everything is water.
Y eso es por lo que Tales empieza diciendo todo es agua.
What Plato said is, look, one thing I know for sure.
Lo que dijo Platón es, mira, lo único que sé
There's no one thing,
es que,
all things.
no hay una cosa que todas las cosas sean.
The first guy that called, Los Estados Unidos, the United States, was a moron.
Y el primero que dijo que los Estados Unidos es en lugar de son era capullísimo.
So everybody knows that the United States is not anything, least of all the greatest country in the world.
Porque todo el mundo sabe que los Estados Unidos no es nada y mucho menos el país más grande del mundo.
At the very best, the United States the greatest country in the world.
Do we need to make America great again? Are you implying?
America great again.
Lo que hay que tener en cuenta es que como mucho
No style.
fueron el mejor país del mundo.
So enough on that. So in the Philebus, Plato trots out this Pythagorean horseshit.
En el Filebo, Sócrates enuncia esta mentira pitagórica.
There's a limit and an unlimited, they get mixed, and there's a cause of the mixture.
Hay un límite, hay un ilimitado, un apeirón, y hay una causa, y hay una mezcla y una causa para esa mezcla.
And the supposed moron in the Philebus named Protarchus, who Socrates is talking to.
Y hay un idiota en el Filebo que se llama Plutarco, al que está hablando.
Hey, don't we need a fifth thing? Don't we need not Plutarch,
Perdón.
You need a fifth thing, a principle of division?
¿No se necesita un quinto principio, el principio de la división?
And Socrates said, no, we don't really need that.
Dice, nada, déjalo estar.
I had not realized that Plutarch had called attention to that till I wrote my Plutarch book.
No se había dado cuenta de que ahora sí Plutarco llamó la atención sobre ese hecho hasta que escribió su libro sobre Plutarco.
Take aside all this reading order stuff.
Dejando aparte toda esta historia del orden de lectura,
The real solution to the problem of Philebus
la auténtica solución al problema del Filebo
is that it's missing a principle of division.
es que no hay un principio de división.
And by the way, when you get to the dialogues like the sophist and the statesman,
Y por cierto, cuando se llegan a diálogos como el sofista o el político,
where you meet this guy that's always making divisions between things,
donde encuentras a este tipo que está siempre dividiendo
like different types of fishing or different types of combining things, like different types of herd animals or wolves or like all this shit. Like, but he never divides. It's what Plato divides.
Lo que nunca divide es lo que Platón dividió.
He never divides being from becoming.
Nunca
He
divide,
never goes to that.
nunca divide
He
ser
divides everything, but not
de
that.
llegar a ser.
Yeah. Okay, where were we? The exact words of the character Plutarch are worth quoting. After listing before, he adds, quote, and a fifth has he left for us to guess at, hyponoien, by which the things that have been mixed, ta mekpenta, once again maintain division and separation, diacrisis kai diastasis, close quote. Few scholars have taken this passage seriously. In The Guardians in Action, I cited Ficino, that's the Renaissance dude that was the paid henchman of the Medici and kind of brought back Neoplatonism to Florence, as an exception, being then unaware of this passage in Plutarch. The reason it has been ignored is that Socrates rejects, quote, for now, en polmun, the apt proposal of Protarchus to include it. Without asking themselves why Plato would include this suggestion, along with its temporary and inept exclusion, they have failed to rise to the level of Plutarch's use of hyponoien, which means to guess at, to hypothesize. As always in the dialogues, Plato's readers must always ask why about such things. Because remember, Plato wrote dialogues, but the real dialogue in Plato is always between Plato, the writer of dialogues, and you.
Platón escribe diálogos, pero el auténtico diálogo siempre es entre Platón, el escritor, y vosotros.
Plato's readers must always ask why about such things. What makes the temporary absence of diacrisis and diastasis so significant is that first Genesis es ousion and then mektai kai gegenemene ousia are clearly among ta mekpenta, the mixed up things, the joined things, the stirred up, combined things. The latter explicitly so. There are certainly other claims that make Philebus problematic. Socrates' uncharacteristic rejection of the unity of the thing to be defined over the objection of Protarchus, his dismissal of the problem of the one and the many, and by the way, the problem of the one and the many is the one I just used the United States to illustrate.
El problema del uno y los muchos era lo que intentaba ejemplificar
No, I agree.
la cuestión de los Estados Unidos.
I realized before Plato is that, we can say, let me see there, 1, 2, 3, 4 people at the table. And so, since there are 4 of us at the table, each one of us is one.
La cuestión es que si podemos contar 4 personas en la mesa, evidentemente cada uno es uno.
The problem is that none of us are one.
Pero ninguno de nosotros es uno.
We've got like a difference between our head and our trunk, and we've got 2 arms and 5 fingers, and that's not even getting down to the subatomic level. Like each one of us is an inconscionably infinite many.
Cada uno de nosotros es mucho. Desde las partes del cuerpo hasta en aspectos subatómicos, pues vete tú.
So when we call a guy like this an individual, we're misusing language.
Cuando me llamáis un individuo.
Because whatever merits Ricardo may have, and they are many.
Yeah. Sorry?
Whatever merits Ricardo may have, and they are many.
Oh, yeah.
His merits.
Sí, cualquiera de los méritos que yo pueda tener, escasos, son muchos.
One merit he does not have is he's not unitary.
Y es que uno de ellos es que no soy unitario.
It's an infinite, unlimited variety of many, electrons for all the hell I know.
Soy un infinito montón de electrones.
To leave aside, the number of his hairs on his head and he's got quite a good head of hair right there. Anyway, so that's, by the way, that's the problem of the one and the many.
Ese es el problema del uno y de los muchos.
So I can't give you a number of reasons why Plato did not think 1 was a number.
Os puedo dar muchos motivos por los que Platón nunca pensó en que 1 es un número.
I can only give you one reason why he thought that 1 was not a number. And I just did.
Y lo acabo de hacer.
So, where were we? And there's an even more, I think I got that. And there's an even more important thing that my latest book project taught me about Plato's Philebus. Plutarch is currently counted among historians of philosophy as a Middle Platonist. With Middle Platonism, a term that was coined only in 1910, and originally denoting eclecticism. Is that in there?
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's in there somewhere.
Continue. Sorry.
Being a convenient but ultimately misleading umbrella term for what preceded the Neoplatonism of Plotinus. On closer scrutiny, what appears as the period's eclecticism is better understood as the indication of an ongoing battle between the older Platonists, who preserved the Socratic orientation of the new academy, and those who were moving Platonism in a neo-Pythagorean direction, a movement that culminated in Plotinus. Now, look, you could deliver a whole semester lecture series on what I just said, which I'm not going to even bother to open it for digression on. Let's just say that most people have considered Platonism to be the form of Platonism preserved in Plotinus.
Se podría hablar mucho de ello, pero ni siquiera hacer una digresión. Lo único que dirá es que para mucha gente el platonismo es lo que quedó del platonismo en Plotino.
And not surprisingly, their favorite dialogue is the Philebus.
Por lo que, para sorpresa de nadie, su diálogo favorito es el Philebus.
It's the one that best supports their views about Plato's.
Porque es el que mejor aguanta sus visiones sobre Platón.
And I am fighting against that.
Y él está luchando contra esa visión.
In comparison with the forerunners of Neoplatonism, like Eudorus, Thrasyllus, Moderatus, and Numenius, Plutarch was on the other side, followed on that path by Atticus and Longinus. What makes this comparatively modern quarrel important is that there is a sense in which it begins with Aristotle in Metaphysics A6, where he described Plato as being deeply influenced by the Pythagoreans, especially with regard to what Aristotle called the one and the great and the small, or the indefinite dyad. That's basically the limit and the unlimited that get mixed and turn into, say, Mario over there.
Es básicamente lo limitado y lo ilimitado que se unen en, pongamos, Mario.
While curiously ignoring his teacher's far more substantial debts to the great Parmenides, both with respect to pedagogy and with respect to unchanging being. But what Plutarch helped me to realize was that the quarrel begins with Plato himself, and that Timaeus and Philebus are its two principal battlegrounds. There was recognition in antiquity that Plato had made the character Timaeus recognizably Pythagorean, and it remains clearly understood today that the limit and the unlimited were the fundamental principles of Philolaus, the Pythagorean. Moreover, since the Pythagoreans, as Aristotle insists, did not separate number, but viewed it as the things themselves, the conspicuous absence of diacrisis or division in Philebus not only implicates an ontology of mixture, but also makes the dialogue itself unlimited, and hence without either a beginning or a definite end. A final reminder that something important is missing and that it is the student's task to find it. And this is the crucial point. Plato developed an art of writing that performed a philosophical version of diacrisis on his readers. And the subsequent history of Platonism indicates that Philebus was a particularly important dialogue in this respect. Beginning in Timaeus, a careful reading reveals that the crisp initial separation in the dialogue Timaeus between Genesis and Ousia is subjected to skillful linguistic manipulation, tending in the aggregate towards Genesis eis Ousion. But with the rise of Neoplatonism, careful reading, and the need to practice what Plutarch had called hyponoien, which is kind of like to, if I may sound like a Straussian, to know between the lines or know underneath the surface of the text, would come under direct attack. Thanks to Porphyry, we know that his former teacher Longinus was dismissed by his new teacher Plotinus for being merely a philologist and not a philosopher. The notion being that careful reading and attention to the carefully wrought texts of Plato diminished their purely philosophical content, in defense of which Plotinus claimed intellectual, spiritual, and sexual superiority. As for Longinus, he wrote this to Porphyry about Plotinus, quote, "He has given a clearer interpretation of the Pythagoreans and, as he thought, of Platonic principles than his predecessors did." That's Porphyry writing the biography of Plotinus. Despite the efforts of Plutarch and Longinus, Platonism had become Pythagorean. And in the wake of a triumphant Neoplatonism, Plato needed to be retrofitted and presented as the proponent of the unwritten teachings, which of course would be, he believed that there was a principle of limit and a principle of the unlimited, and that the cosmos is a yin-yang combination of form and matter all mixed together and turned into one, which is what everybody from Hegel to the Stoics to Spinoza to yin up the yin-yang have been doing. And by the way, it's what all deep thinkers want to do. They want to show you that all things are one, make a system for things. That's what they do. That's what they like to do. The result was that attention to, quote, skillful linguistic manipulation disappeared. And the dialogues were melted down into sound bites like assimilation to God, with all their dialectical subtlety and play of character ignored. It is only the image of Plato purveying secret doctrines in the academy that could have so effectively concealed from view the rather obvious claim that it was Plato's eminently teachable dialogues that Plato the teacher taught in the academy. And here I'll make a little personal digression. And everybody knows that Plato was a teacher.
Puesto que todo el mundo sabe que Platón era un profesor.
I mean, he created the word academics, for God's sake.
Él creó la palabra academia.
And since everybody knows that Plato's dialogues are like eminently teachable because they've been teaching him for the last 2,000 years.
Y puesto que todos sabemos que los diálogos son básicamente enseñables, puesto que han sido enseñados durante 2000 años.
I can only say that God be praised for giving a high school teacher from the United States of America.
Solamente puedo decir que alabado sea Dios porque se nos ha dado un profesor de instituto de los Estados Unidos
The opportunity to be original.
en la oportunidad de ser original,
For saying nothing more complicated than that 2 + 2 = 4.
por decir algo no más complicado que 2 y 2 son 4.
Since everybody knows that Plato was a teacher and that Plato's dialogues are eminently teachable,
Porque si todos sabemos que era un profesor y
it should not be an original claim that Plato's dialogues are really taught in the academy.
no parece que sea muy original decir que los diálogos eran el material de la academia.
But God be praised, it is.
Pero alabado sea Dios, lo es.
And that's really because people were brainwashed by Aristotle into thinking that what Plato must have taught was this esoteric kind of neo-Pythagorean mixture of the limit and the unlimited that they found in the Philemon.
Y si esto parece original es porque nuestro cerebro ha sido alabado por ese platonismo, esa idea de que, aristotelismo, esa idea de que Platón es una especie de pitagórico que estaba enseñando doctrinas no escritas sobre todas estas cosas.
Although Timaeus played the most important role in the clash between Plotinus and the more careful exegetes like Plutarch, it is remarkable how prescient Plato proved to be in Philebus, a complex dialogue that likewise made the status of Pythagoreanism the interpretive battleground and thus the basis for a pedagogical diacrisis that would divide Plato's students between those that were going to turn into Aristotle and those that were going to stick with Plato.
Una diácrisis que dividirá a sus alumnos entre los que se convertirán en aristotélicos y los que continuarán siendo platónicos.
As I tried to show in The Guardians in Action, Philebus offered, quote, a mixed message, unquote, and that Plato was ever and always, quote, the cause of the mixture, clause, quote. My favorite example for the need for hermeneutical and philological care in reading Philebus is the passage near the beginning of the dialogue, where Socrates asks if it is necessary to maintain, oh, I don't want to read this. I've taken an, I feel done. Does anybody have any, look, I've made my say. Like, there's more to this. You can read it if you want. I'm not going to go into the four Henades. I'm too bored with myself.
Hasta aquí hemos llegado. El resto lo podéis leer vosotros. Ahora lo importante es si hay preguntas, respuestas y así nos divertimos.
Thanks to Maria and Antonio, it's written down. It's in a book somewhere. You know, it's not an unwritten teaching. You're welcome to read it for yourselves. I'll entertain questions about it or anything else, but I think I've taken a lot of time with digressions.
Lo tenéis todo traducido, que ha empleado mucho tiempo en digresiones.
So I'm done.
Así que hasta aquí hemos llegado.
What do you got?
Bueno, ahora empezamos un turno de preguntas, que si no hay nadie impaciente por ser el primero, pues puedo empezar yo. Podéis preguntar sobre Platón o sobre en concreto la interpretación de alma, lo que vosotros consideréis oportuno, que será probablemente todo, así que no seáis tímidos. Y esto lo digo por mi parte. ¿Se escucha bien? Sí. Bueno, lo primero que todo, agradecer a Will la conferencia que ha dado y tanto a ella como a María como a Rick que merecen estar con ellos aquí, porque como veis nos separan los años de experiencia. Sí que espero que no sea un detalle. Y tengo dos preguntas que principalmente me gustaría hacer al profesor Altman. Y voy a empezar citando uno de los libros que ha escrito, si me permite María, la traducción automática. En concreto es los guardianes en acción. Y es que en la introducción el profesor Altman dice: la mejor vida es la vida de la justicia. La elección libre del filósofo debe volver a la caverna. Para los que ahora mismo estéis obnubilados por la comprensión que vamos a recibir, el filósofo es un diálogo que principalmente trata sobre si la mejor vida, o en sí como se llama el diálogo, la buena vida, es una vida principalmente llena de placeres o de intelecto. Sin embargo, como bien Sin embargo, en ese diálogo es muy importante notar que el sintagma, la idea de bien, no aparece. Y la justicia aparece mencionada de manera en que no se le da mucha importancia. Es decir, que la vida que se supone que es la mejor, que es la vida de la justicia, no se contempla. Y a mí me gustaría preguntar primero...
Wait a minute. You're going to another question now?
No, it's not a question, it's just an introduction.
Oh, good. That was going to be hard enough.
Entonces me gustaría preguntarte si piensas que el filósofo no solo se puede ver como un diálogo basanístico, sino también como una prueba de que Platón el maestro está pensando no solo en los mejores estudiantes que le han podido seguir, aunque sea de las penas, en el camino largo.
So we're using that it's not only a Bassanist style, but also a test to see those students who were able to follow him in the long way.
Yeah, that's good.
Sino también un diálogo en el que Platón, dentro de que no está la idea del bien, puede ofrecerles algo a aquellos que se han quedado en el camino corto.
But also a dialogue in which even for those who stayed in the short way, he can even offer something, even though the idea of good is not present.
Okay.
Y la segunda pregunta sería
Second question.
que...
¿Por qué no?
espera, bueno, si quieres responder a la primera...
Is you gonna go for the first question before he attacks with the second?
No, I think I got the first. Let's hear the second one. Then. If you have two or three.
No, two.
Okay.
I
Go.
think three.
No, wait, you said two.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have the second one.
Antes. Y la segunda es que entonces si la discusión del filósofo no incluso con el bien, ¿qué sucede con los placeres y con el intelecto, la vida de la justicia.
And if the discussion doesn't include the idea of good, perhaps with pleasure and justice, the pleasures and duties and the idea of justice.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Say that one more time.
La última,
I was waiting for something longer. Now, this is a very short question.
¿qué sucede con los placeres y con el intelecto en la vida de la justicia?
Intellect in the life of justice. In the idea, in la idea.
No, en la vida de la
The
justicia.
life of justice, what happens with pleasures and intellect.
Well, first of all, let me say, I like this kid. I liked him the moment I saw him, and I like him even more every time he opens his mouth. Those are really good questions. You know, I just one of the ways you can tell that they're really good questions is that even though the word pleasure appeared in both of his questions, he didn't really emphasize that. You know, anybody from my country that heard me talk this way, they're only, hey, this dialogue's about pleasure, Altman, you son of a bitch. Like, why didn't you talk about pleasure? Because the Philebus appears to be about pleasure.
Uno de los, bueno, lo primero es que el chaval le parece brillante y se lo demuestra cada vez que abre la boca. Son dos buenas preguntas y además están muy bien puestas, puesto que, habiendo citado la cuestión del placer en las dos, no le he dado un énfasis que en su país todo el mundo haría. Este diálogo va del placer, háblame del placer.
And his questions, Eric's questions, are much more respectful than that.
Sus preguntas son mucho más respetuosas.
And really raising some very important questions that are not only pertinent to my own particular work,
Y apuntan a unas cuestiones que no son solamente importantes en su trabajo,
but to life itself.
sino a la propia vida.
I don't know that I'll be able to do them justice,
No sabe si será capaz de hacerles justicia,
especially since justice is at the core of both of his questions.
puesto que la justicia, especialmente porque la justicia está en el corazón de las dos.
But it would be unjust of me not to acknowledge that this is a fine young man
Pero sería injusto no reconocer que es un tipo interesante
and that I'm very grateful for these
y que
questions.
está muy agradecido por sus preguntas.
You know, the great thing about teaching is that you learn when you teach.
Lo importante de enseñar es que aprendes cuando enseñas.
The Romans have a little phrase, it's called discere docendo.
Los romanos tienen esta expresión que es docere delectando.
It translates as to learn in the process of teaching.
Ah, pues no era lo que había dicho, pero el suyo es mejor. Aprenderá el proceso de aprender, discere deducando.
So my version of that is that, you know, like I just learned some stuff while Eric was talking.
Su punto es que ha aprendido algo mientras tú estabas hablando.
And I guess what I learned, I don't know if it's exactly an answer to his first question or his second question. Maybe it's an answer to both of them. But that the idea had never really occurred to me that reading Plato's Philebus
Lo que le ha surgido es, no sabe si es respuesta a la primera o segunda pregunta, pero que lo que nunca se le había ocurrido era que leyendo el Filebo
is like going back down into the cave.
es como bajar a la caverna.
That we're going to be exposed to some, you know, fraudulent but deceptive teachings,
Vamos a estar expuestos a enseñanzas fraudulentas
and that we have to, you know, get our eyes used to the sophisticated complexities that we're going to find there,
y tenemos que acostumbrar nuestros ojos a esas complejidades que vamos a
and
encontrar
not be seduced by them.
y no ser seducidos por ellas.
And as, you know, strange as it may seem for a guy that put going back down into the cave at the center of his entire interpretation of Plato,
Y por más extraño que pueda parecer por una persona que ha puesto el descenso a la caverna como el centro de la obra de Platón,
and that's me, by the way,
también es él.
but that thought had never occurred to me.
Nunca se le había ocurrido.
And it's like totally obviously true now that I think about it.
Y ahora que pienso en eso
So thank you, dude.
es cierto.
That's very good. I like that. Now, how much of his questions that answers, I really don't know. What I will say is that the Philebus, that Plato has made pleasure a very important issue throughout the dialogues from beginning to end.
Lo que dirá es que Platón ha hecho del placer algo muy importante en sus diálogos de principio a fin.
It's central in the Protagoras and it comes back in the laws.
Es centrada en el Protágoras y vuelve en las leyes.
And it's never more important than it is in the Philebus and the Gorgias.
Y nunca es más importante que en el Filebo o en el Gorgias.
So the austere way of explaining Platonism
La forma austera de explicar el platonismo
is to say that Plato is about transcending pleasure, especially the pleasures of the body,
es decir, que Platón va sobre trascender los placeres.
because they turn you into a womanizing asshole that goes from girl to girl with like no regard for decency, honesty, or anything good.
Porque te convierte en un Don Juan.
Exactly. In other words, they turn you into the typical boy,
Te convierte en un típico tío
and so that they should kind of be resisted.
y que deben ser resistidos.
And then, you know, on the other hand, you've got like the Middle Ages and you got monks and nuns and they're denying their bodies, and that doesn't seem very natural either.
Y luego llega la Edad Media y los monjes y las monjas negando el cuerpo y tampoco parece muy...
So you got to try to figure out where pleasure fits in.
Así que hay que pensar dónde encaja el placer.
Now, Plato pretty clearly seems to think that pleasure is deceptive.
Y Platón piensa que el placer engaña
And that we can easily be misled in our search for pleasure.
y que podemos ser guiados mal en nuestra búsqueda por el placer.
On the other hand, any guy that has devoted, I don't know, 50 years of their life to reading Plato's dialogues
Por otra parte, alguien que haya invertido, digamos, 50 años en leer
and
diálogos
finding all the really great, famous, and wonderful jokes that are buried and hidden within them,
encontrando todos esos maravillosos chistes que están enterrados en ellos
and realizing how thoroughly Plato reveals the absolute stupidity of almost every other philosopher that comes after him, to say nothing of the philosophers that came before him.
y viendo cómo Platón es capaz de mostrar que todos los filósofos que le siguen son bastante tontacos, por no hablar de los que le preceden.
Well, let's just say that the experience of taking Plato seriously is not unpleasant.
Digamos que la tarea de tomarse a Platón seriamente no produce poco placer.
Whether or not Plato took great pleasure in writing his dialogues, I do not know.
Él no sabe si Platón disfrutó mucho escribiéndolos,
But on the basis of my own pleasure in reading and interpreting them, I strongly believe that he did.
pero basado en el placer que lo obtuvo al leerlo, piensa que sí.
So I guess that raises the question of, are there different kinds of pleasure?
Así que imagina que la pregunta de si hay distintos tipos de placer surge aquí.
Maybe Plato thought that there were.
Y quizá Platón pensó que sí.
Like that there was an intellectual pleasure and that there was a physical or carnal pleasure, and that one tied you down to the body and the other soared you up to become, I don't know, St. Augustine or St. Thomas Aquinas or whatever.
Unos más intelectuales, otros más corporales.
My personal view is that Plato pretty strongly associated pleasure with the body.
Platón asociaba fuertemente el placer con el cuerpo.
And that there probably was some other concept he had for the kind of pleasure we get from philosophizing.
Y probablemente tenía algún otro concepto para lo que nosotros llamamos el placer que obtenemos a través de la filosofía.
Maybe he would have agreed with a guy like Prodicus that could come up with different words for different kinds of pleasures and make distinctions, maybe.
Quizá hubiera estado de acuerdo con alguien pródigo que era capaz de llegar a distintas palabras para distintos tipos de placer.
I really don't know.
No lo sabe.
I think that Plato was pretty convinced that the pleasures of the body are secondary to something higher.
Él cree que Platón pensaba que los placeres del cuerpo son secundarios frente a otro tipo.
And the fact that the Philebus is a dialogue that seems to rehabilitate pleasure in a pretty Platonic sounding way.
Y el hecho de que el Filebo sea un diálogo que intenta
that seems to rehabilitate pleasure in a pretty Platonic way.
Perdón, que parece que rehabilita el placer en una forma platónica.
In other words, who would want a life of reason if it didn't have some pleasure in it?
En otras palabras, ¿quién querría una vida de razón si no hubiera un poquito de placer en ella?
Oh, now I've lost my train of thought. That given that he does that. Now, where was I going after that?
He was rehabilitating pleasure.
He was rehabilitating. Given that he seems to be I got it. That given that he seems to be rehabilitating pleasure in what looks like a Platonic manner, the fact that the dialogue is called Philebus.
El hecho de que el título es Filebo.
Like, I don't know what you guys know about Greek, but a hebos, like an hebos is, let's just say it's a beautiful young man right on the verge of turning into maleness, like it's like an attractive adolescent. We all know that the boys were kind of into boy love, right? They were kind of pederastic, homoerotic, like there was a big homoerotic boy loving element, right?
Tenemos claro el concepto de Febo en la antigua Grecia, ese muchacho a punto de convertirse en un hombre.
So,
recordamos que en la antigua Grecia había ese rollito homoerótico.
So to speak like an Englishman, I won't say that the name Philebus translates into British English as boy buggerer.
Ok, bueno, no cree que Filebo se puede traducir en inglés como, bueno, alguien que le va a ese tipo de cosas.
But it basically does mean that.
Pero sí.
And Philebus is an old guy that doesn't talk much in the Philebus.
Filebo es un tipo que no habla mucho en el Filebo.
That's surrounded by a lot of young boys that are his friends.
Está rodeado de jovencitos.
So, you know,
Pleasure.
Yeah,
pleasure.
I mean, I guess that's enough about pleasure. You know, like one of the claims that is made by Socrates in the Philebus is that, like, take eating, for example, that we get pleasure from filling ourselves up with food, but that we never get pleasure by evacuating food.
Una de las cosas que dice Sócrates es que, hablando de comida, es curioso que...
And I don't know about you guys, but I refute that claim every day.
Yeah. Ok, Sócrates dice que es curioso cómo sentimos mucho placer al llenarnos comiendo, pero no tanto al evacuar, cosa que él dice seguramente, y muchos de nosotros estaremos de acuerdo, que cada día se da cuenta de lo equivocado que está Sócrates, porque en valenciano tenemos un dicho que es aquello de "ten vull més que en bon cagar". Esto no lo ha dicho él.
So I really don't, you know, how much have I answered of you?
You're answering well.
Oh, good. Well, that's a great relief. Okay, so are there any other, like, should we ask for other questions? Those were excellent. Thank you very much, Eric. Appreciate that. Watch that man. Any other questions? Hey, guys. Hey, we got one. I am tired.
Sí. Muchas gracias por tu charla otra vez. Aquí está bien.
Sí.
Gente. Muchas gracias otra vez. En el texto que pasaste, en el final del texto, una de las cosas más interesantes que planteabas era que Sócrates, del Filebo al Fedro, había aprendido algunas cosas, ¿no? Era más encantador y casi podríamos decir que ha aprendido a enseñar mejor. El Filebo es aburrido y el Fedro es encantador.
Right.
Sí. No, pero lo que en la charla era que del Filebo al Fedro ha aprendido algo. El Filebo es un diálogo del joven Sócrates y el Fedro es mayor. Sí, pero que los hechos que narran. Sí, Sócrates ha aprendido a ser un mejor maestro. Ok. Esta habilidad de ser mejor maestro es filosófica o extrafilosófica. Tiene, por decirlo en términos del filo, cierta mezcla. Hay una mezcla de filosofía y política, por ejemplo. Esta es una pregunta que en el fondo...
Is this ability to be a better teacher philosophical or extra philosophical? There's a mixture between.
Es una pregunta que en el fondo está relacionada con otra pregunta acerca del centro del dramático que es Platón es un maestro.
And this question is related to another one. Is teacher? Sorry, is Plato a teacher?
Teacher. That means that he's a philosopher and a politician. Or being a teacher is the same as being a philosopher. Ser maestro significa ser en parte filósofo y en parte político. o podemos identificar la condición del maestro simplemente con la de filósofo?
Okay.
Okay.
Excellent. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like I kind of, I came, at least I came very, very close to answering that question this morning.
Considera que se acercó mucho a responder a esto esta mañana.
When I said that I've never found it easy to make a division between reason and intellect and passion.
Cuando dijo que no le era fácil hacer una división entre intelecto y pasión.
What I've always felt about being a teacher
Lo que siempre he pensado sobre ser un profesor
is that there are three things you need to be a great teacher.
es que hay tres cosas que necesitas para serlo.
And one of them is that you got to be smart,
Tienes que ser listo,
because kids are smart.
porque los chavales son listos.
And when they tell you to go fuck off and eat shit, you got to have a better reply than that's an inappropriate thing to say. Go to the principal's office.
Y cuando te dicen que te den, tienes que poder decirle algo mejor que eso no me lo puedes decir. Ve al despacho del director.
And the second thing you got to have is you got to love your subject matter.
Y lo segundo es que tienes
You
que
got to
amar
love it.
tu materia.
It's got to be a compulsion for you to spread it.
Tiene que ser compulsivo para ti enseñarla, expandirla.
And then finally, you got to love the kids.
Y finalmente tienes que amar a los chavales.
I once heard two of my colleagues talking about how they had found a kid that didn't have a hall pass wandering out in the halls.
Alguna vez he hablado o he comentado con algún compañero, esto es muy de película yankee, sabéis que en los institutos tienen para poder pasar por los pasillos un pase de pasillo. Si te pillan en un pasillo sin pase de pasillo, te castigan. Y alguna vez un profesor se había encontrado un chaval sin pase de pasillo.
And she used an Americanism which was, I nailed him.
Y la profesora dijo, lo he crujido.
And as a guy that saw the movie Ben-Hur when I was 5 years old,
Y como una persona que vio la película de Nur cuando tenía 5 años,
and have never been able to shake out of my mind the sound that the hammer makes when it knocks a nail into Jesus's hand,
y que nunca pudo quitarse de su mente el sonido que un martillo hacía cuando crujía el clavo en las manos de Jesús.
the idea that it was somehow good to nail anybody
La idea de que era bueno crujir a alguien
made me feel like that person was not a colleague I had any respect for.
le hacía pensar que esa profesora no era alguien por quien tenía mucho respeto.
So where do those things come? Like to be smart, to love the kids, to love the subject matter? Are those three things or are they one thing?
¿De dónde vienen esas tres cosas? ¿Son tres cosas distintas o
They,
son uno?
they seem like all the same to me.
Parece lo mismo.
If you love the kids, you see that they're smart, so you got to be smart.
Si amas a los chavales, verás que son listos y que tú has de ser
And
listo.
if you have a subject matter that's worth teaching, you got to be smart to understand it.
Y si te gusta tu materia, has de ser listo para entenderla.
And if you really want to share your subject matter, you really got to love the people that you're sharing
Y
it.
si quieres compartirla, has de amar a la gente a la que se la
Be darned if I know whether there's a difference between being a philosopher and a teacher and a statesman.
que me aspen si sé si hay una diferencia entre ser un profesor, un filósofo y un hombre de Estado.
But they both seem like the same damn thing to me.
Pero parecen la misma maldita cosa para él.
I once I read an article once about a teacher who was awarded the Teacher of the Year award for the state of Massachusetts.
Una vez leí una historia sobre un profesor que ganó el premio al mejor profesor del año en el estado de Massachusetts.
And he said, being a teacher is like conducting an orchestra.
Y dijo, ser un profesor es como dirigir una orquesta.
You got your violins
Tienes,
and you got your flute and your clarinet and you got the big bass drum at the back.
tienes a tus violines, a tus clarinetes, a tus flautas y a los bajos al fondo.
And you don't ask all of them the same questions or expect the same things from them.
Y tú no les preguntas a todos lo mismo ni esperas las mismas respuestas de cada uno.
You let each of them give the best that they've got.
Tú les dejas que den lo mejor que tienen.
Now that's the art of a statesman.
Y ese es el arte de un político,
It's the art of a psychologist.
de un psicólogo.
Is there a difference between being a teacher and, Socrates is the guy that problematizes the question that you ask.
Sócrates es el tipo que problematiza la pregunta que
And he
tú estás haciendo.
problematizes it in the dialogue de Gorgias,
Y lo problematiza en el Gorgias,
where he says that he might be the only true statesman in Athens.
donde dice que él puede ser el único hombre de Estado en Atenas.
he didn't really ever hold any office except when he refused to put the vote at the time of the Battle of Argimasai.
Aunque él nunca tuvo ningún cargo, quitando el momento en que renuncia a votar contra la batalla de...
You know, like, when he tries to trap the Eleatic stranger, he says, philosopher, statesman, sophist. Are they all the same thing or are they different?
Cuando intenta atrapar al extraño, el extranjero de Lea, diciendo filósofo, sofista, político, ¿son lo mismo? ¿Son distintos?
So in other words, Plato is raising your question, and I don't know that he's answering it exactly.
Platón estaba haciendo tu pregunta y no está seguro de que le haya respondido.
But it seems to me that making hard and fast divisions between these is an error.
Pero cree que hacer divisiones muy duras entre esas cosas es un error.
And to recur to the question that Eric asked,
Para volver a la pregunta de Eric,
the Philebus is generally considered an important dialogue in ethics.
el Filebo es un diálogo importante en ética.
It clearly has very strong ontological and metaphysical implications.
Tiene implicaciones ontológicas y metafísicas importantes.
And yet, if you listen to Eric's question, it makes it very clear that justice is very central to it, even though it's scarcely mentioned.
Y si prestamos atención a Eric, nos damos cuenta de que la justicia es muy importante, aunque apenas es nombrada.
Especially if we look at it as a pedagogical test to see what it's like to go back down into the darkness of the cave.
Especialmente si lo consideramos un texto pedagógico sobre cómo volver a la caverna.
This morning, I had 4 male students come up to me after the various female students had come up to me.
Esta mañana hubo 4 muchachos que se acercaron a él
And one of them asked a really interesting question.
y uno preguntó algo muy interesante.
I didn't really understand it fully because my Spanish isn't great.
No lo he entendido del todo porque su español no es
But
bueno,
what I got out of the question is something like this.
pero pilló algo así.
I like philosophy and I really like what Professor Lastra has taught us.
Me gusta la filosofía y me gusta lo que nos enseña.
But I'm concerned that when I go to university, the professors I have there aren't really going to teach philosophy the way Professor Lastra has taught it.
Pero temo que cuando vaya a la facultad los profesores que me voy a encontrar no van a enseñar filosofía como el profesor Lastra.
And I immediately said, you're goddamn right they're not going
Y he
to.
dicho, pues, seguro que no.
But that's no reason not to do it.
Pero eso no es motivo para no estudiarla,
Because it will give you the opportunity to try to fight for what's true,
porque te da la oportunidad de luchar por lo que es auténtico,
to learn how to see in the darkness of the cave.
aprender a ver en la oscuridad de la cueva.
You know, when the greatest product of the greatest political product of the French Enlightenment has elected Donald Trump as its president.
Sorry, come again.
When the greatest product of the French Enlightenment has just elected Donald Trump as its president.
Cuando el producto político más elaborado de la Ilustración francesa, Estados Unidos, ha elegido a Trump como presidente,
You know that the world has become a mighty dark place.
te das cuenta de que el mundo se ha convertido en un lugar muy oscuro.
I mean, if the Hungarians want to elect Viktor Orban, like, we'll go there.
Como cuando los húngaros han querido elegir a Víctor Orbán.
But when the country that wrote the Declaration of Independence and elected Frank Roosevelt and Abraham Lincoln and Harry S. Truman elects that jackass, you know that there's something seriously the matter.
Y lo de Hungría pase, pero cuando el país que ha elegido a Jefferson, que ha elegido a Lincoln, que ha elegido a tanta buena gente que no recuerdo, Harry Truman, te das cuenta de que al elegir a un capullo como el actual, la cosa no pinta nada bien.
So learning how to see in the dark is a pretty important skill.
Por tanto, aprender a ver en la oscuridad es una habilidad muy importante.
And that, thanks to Eric, I think comes pretty close to solving really the problem of the Philebus.
Y así, y gracias a Eric, creo que se ha acercado mucho a resolver el problema del Filebo.
Alfred North Whitehead once said that the safest way to describe the history of philosophy since Plato
Whitehead dijo una vez que la forma de los sofistas de describir la filosofía desde Platón.
La forma más segura de entender la tradición filosófica europea.
Maravilla. La forma más segura de entender la tradición. Genial. Lástima. La forma más segura de leer, de entender la tradición filosófica europea
is that it constitutes a series of footnotes to Plato.
Es entenderla como una serie de notas a pie de página a los diálogos de Platón.
And what I find most extraordinary about Plato
Y lo que encuentra más extraordinario en Platón,
modifies Whitehead a little bit.
modifica a Whitehead un poquito.
Is just how prescient Plato was about the direction things would go in.
Es cuánto se adelantó Platón a cómo las cosas iban a ser en el futuro.
It wouldn't surprise Plato one bit
No le sorprendería ni lo más mínimo
to know that the United States had just elected a guy like Donald Trump.
saber que los Estados Unidos han elegido un tipo como Trump.
He was writing to create the kind of people that would fight against that and prevent that.
Estaba escribiendo para crear el tipo de gente que lucharía contra eso y que lo prevendría.
And learning how to see in the dark
Y aprender a ver en la oscuridad
has never become more important, it seems to me, than it is today.
nunca ha sido tan importante, le parece, como hoy.
You know, the joke of my first book is called Plato the Teacher.
El chiste en su primer libro es Platón el maestro.
It shouldn't have been like my first book should not have been called Plato the Teacher.
El primer libro no debería haberse llamado Platón el
All
profesor maestro.
5 of the books should be called Plato the Teacher.
Los 5 deberían haberse llamado así.
You know, volume 1, The Ascent to the Beautiful. Volume 2, The Ascent to the Good. Volume 3 is The Crisis of the Republic.
El volumen 3 es la crisis de la República
Now that has a double meaning.
y tiene un doble significado.
In the terms of Plato, the crisis of the Republic is this particular passage at 521b, where, you know, Plato writes this sentence that can be taken in 2 different ways.
En Platón, la crisis de la República, se da un pasaje en el que escribe una frase que puede ser interpretada de 2 formas.
He's either saying that the make-believe imaginary guardians of a pretend made-up city have a political obligation to go back down into the cave.
Una es entender que hay que enseñarle a los guardianes que tienen una especie de obligación para volver a la caverna a cuidar de la gente en esa especie de polis ideal.
Or he's saying that you have a political and personal obligation to go back down into the cave.
Pero la segunda es que vosotros tenéis la obligación de volver a la caverna.
And that's your choice, and that creates the crisis of the book, The Republic.
Y esa es vuestra elección y es lo que crea la crisis en el libro.
But as I said this morning in the high school, I've known that America was in crisis since 1980.
Pero como he dicho esta mañana, él era consciente de que América estaba en crisis desde 1980.
Since we elected that movie star president of the United States.
Desde que eligieron como director, como presidente a esa estrella de
I
cine.
mean, I don't want to sound like a holy roller, but he was the first president we elected that had been divorced.
Él era el primer presidente divorciado que habían elegido, habla de Reagan.
And he pretended to be a holy roller,
Y pretendía ser un tipo de moral intachable.
to say nothing about the people that think that it's godly and Christian to vote for this jackass.
Por no hablar de los que piensan que el capullo actual tiene como una especie de relación directa con lo divino y lo sagrado.
So the double meaning, of course, is that what my book was predicated on is the crisis of the Republic. In other words, what I was claiming was that only in a time of growing darkness, where the danger of tyranny is rising, can Plato be fully understood.
Lo que sostiene es que solamente en un momento en el que el peligro de la tiranía es evidente, puede ser completamente entendido Platón.
That when things are going great, you don't really need Plato. You don't need philosophers to go back down into the cave.
Cuando las cosas van bien, no necesitas que los filósofos vuelvan a la caverna.
It's only when the truth is being twisted by criminals
Solamente cuando la verdad ha sido retorcida por la
that you
gente,
need somebody to read the Philebus and see what's false in it, to go back to Eric's excellent point.
que necesitas que alguien lea el Filebo y se dé cuenta de lo que hay de mentira en él.
You know, when I was a teacher, a couple of times I had to substitute for physical education classes.
Cuando era profesor, un par de veces tuve que sustituir al colega de gimnasia.
I'm not a particularly athletic person.
No es un tipo atlético como yo.
Well, at least I was taught that I wasn't.
Por lo menos es lo que le habían dicho.
In fact, I once had a coach that said to me, Altman, you're pathetic. When I was your age, I could piss further than you can throw a football.
Oh, mira, eso nunca me lo dijeron a mí. De hecho, tuve un profesor que le dijo, Altman, eres patético. A tu edad yo podía mirar más lejos de lo que tú puedes lanzar una pelota.
So what I decided when I was a physical education teacher for a couple of times
Lo que decidió cuando le tocó sustituir al de gimnasia,
First of all, I learned that what a good physical education teacher should do is find a sport that every single person in your class can be good at.
Lo primero que un auténtico profesor de educación física debe hacer es encontrar un...
If all you've got is football in your mind and you're measuring whether these guys will be good football players, you're a jerk.
Si tú escoges uno porque te gusta mucho y vas a medir lo bueno que son los demás por ese deporte que tú has escogido, eres un capo.
So anybody that's watched the Olympics sees that there's a big difference between a flyweight woman's weightlifter and an Australian, walker that walks 40 miles at a time, to say nothing of a Kenyan that walks 60 miles.
Porque si hemos visto los Juegos Olímpicos, veis que hay mucha diferencia entre los distintos juegos.
Leave that aside. The other thing I learned is that, when you actually have to teach kids in a physical education class, the first thing you do is you tell them to warm up by doing some exercises.
Sorry, come again.
That when you teach a physical education class, the first thing you got to do is get them to warm up by doing push-ups and jumping jacks.
Lo siguiente que aprendí es que cuando vas a hacer educación física, lo primero que hay que hacer es hacerles calentar.
And, no kids, nobody wants to do that. They just want to play a game. They don't want it.
Y los chavales lo que quieren es jugar.
So it was characteristic of my way of teaching that I solved this problem in the following manner.
Y él solucionaba este problema de la siguiente forma.
I said, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I know, and you know, that none of you guys need to warm up before we play kickball right now.
Él decía, mira, chatos, vamos a asumirlo. Vosotros sabéis, yo sé que no os hace falta...
You guys are young, agile people. You don't need to learn. This is all bullshit. You got to understand why I'm going to force you to warm up.
Pero tenéis que entender por qué os voy a forzar a calentar.
Because I'm going to make you warm up, because even though I know you don't need to warm up now.
Porque aunque sé que no lo necesitáis ahora,
when you're 60 years old and you get challenged to run a little foot race and you don't warm up, you're going to pull a Charlie horse and be crippled for 2 months.
Cuando tengáis 60 años y os dé por salir a correr por la
so really a whistle is going to be there telling you to for that.
Y no vais a tener ningún capullo con silbato diciendo calentar.
So we make you warm up now in the hope that maybe someday you'll remember to warm up when you actually need to warm
Así
up.
que calentad ahora a ver si cuando seáis mayores os saco
Jumping jacks.
y a calentar todo el mundo.
Which I thought was a really intelligent thing to say in a phys ed class. I wish somebody said that to me.
Y él pensó que era una cosa bastante inteligente que pero ojalá se lo hubieran dicho a él.
And I think this is what Plato's dialogues are all about.
Y cree que los diálogos van sobre eso.
I'm not going to be around when you have to deal with Trump or Orban or whatever else is going on in your world.
No voy a estar por aquí cuando llegue Trump o Orbán.
So I'll write a series of dialogues that will force you to learn to see in the dark,
Así que os voy a escribir una serie de diálogos que os ayuden a ver en la oscuridad,
to sift the truth and find out what are lies.
para buscar la verdad.
I'm telling them. See, that's the beauty of Plato.
Hasta para que la podáis buscar cuando hablo yo, para buscar dónde está en sus
The
libros.
great passage in the Phaedrus is where Plato, the greatest right, like Plato could do whatever he wanted with a pen. He wrote speeches for all sorts of different characters. He could write poetry. He was an artist. Every word is placed in a beautiful position.
Lo grande en el Pedro es que siendo Platón un artista que era capaz de escribir todo tipo de discursos, momentos, etcétera, etcétera,
And in this beautifully written, charming dialogue, way more charming than the Philebus called the Phaedrus,
y en este otro diálogo mucho más encantador, el Fedro,
he has Socrates say, no serious person cares anything about what they write.
hace decir a Sócrates, no te preocupes, a nadie le importa lo que se escribe.
It's a waste of time.
Escribir es una pérdida de tiempo.
You write something down on a piece of paper and it just keeps saying the same thing again and again and again.
Escribes algo en un trozo de papel y siempre dice lo mismo.
It says the same thing to everybody. You can't ask it any questions. It doesn't know who is the bass drum and who is the violin. It doesn't know how to make a division between readers. It's just set down there and it says nothing.
Porque está escrito, dice lo mismo todo el mundo sin darse cuenta de sus diferencias y por tanto en el fondo no le dice nada.
A serious person gives a damn about writing.
Nadie serio le importa nada.
Says one of the greatest writers that ever picked up.
Dijo uno de los más grandes escritores de la historia.
And the solution is that what he realized is that there was an art of writing,
Y la solución es que se dio cuenta de que hay lo que se llama un arte de la escritura,
in which he would have one of his characters talk bullshit.
en el que haría que uno de sus personajes dijera mentiras.
His mentiras. And that most people would believe those mentiras because it was spoken by an authority like Plato.
Y lo divertido es que la mayoría de la gente se creerá esas mentiras porque están escritas por alguien con autoridad como Platón.
And that Plato was trying to get you to realize that, you know, that if you're willing to go, if you're willing to think for yourself, you will realize that a text does not say the same thing to everybody.
Pero si uno tiene que buscar la verdad, debe darse cuenta de que un texto no le dirá lo mismo a todo el mundo.
If it is written in a deliberately deceptive manner,
Si está escrito deliberadamente de una forma engañosa,
where the reader is challenged to divide the truth from the falsehood.
para que el lector, para llevar al lector a dividir entre la verdad y la mentira.
In all my years of teaching history, I never once gave a test that was called a multiple choice test.
En todos esos años de profesor de historia nunca puso un examen de múltiples opciones.
Like, all of the following are true of Donald Trump except
Como todo lo siguiente es verdad de Trump, excepto
A, he faked his way out of the Vietnam War.
A, fingió su salida de la guerra de Vietnam para no ir a la guerra de Vietnam.
B, he married an illegal immigrant.
B, se casó con un inmigrante ilegal.
C, has a PhD in economics.
C, tiene un doctorado en económicas.
And then obviously all of them are true except C.
Y evidentemente todas son verdad, menos la C.
It turns out that although I never gave any multiple choice tests in my career,
Aunque nunca puse uno de esos exámenes,
that Plato really invented the spirit of the multiple choice test.
Platón inventó el espíritu de esos exámenes de multiple choice.
Because if you've ever made up a multiple choice test, which I personally have not,
Porque si te inventas uno de esos exámenes, cosa que él no ha hecho,
you have to give one ridiculous answer, one true answer, one pretty ridiculous answer, but then maybe two other answers that are just close enough to the truth that it's going to get a certain number of your students to make a mistake.
porque si haces uno de esos exámenes sabes que para cada pregunta tienes que dar la respuesta correcta. Una evidentemente es una tontería, otra bastante tonta, pero dos que vas a pillar a los listos.
It's like it could be true, but only if you know the truth will you know that it's false.
Que parecen la verdad, pero solo si conoces la verdad sabes que son falsas.
That's the solution to the problem of the Philebus. And that's all I got to say tonight.
Esa es la solución al problema del Filebo y hasta aquí hemos llegado.
Uh-oh. I guess it's not all I've got to say tonight. What's up?
It
There is a
was,
question from Mexico.
Oh,
You may
they do.
Diego,
Diego, sé breve.
brevedad, por favor.
He's the Menexenus guy, right?
No, he did the Mino.
Oh, the Mino. I thought you said it was the Menexenus.
No, there was another guy.
Oh, that was another. Okay, guy. What's
Hola,
up?
buenas tardes. ¿Me escuchan?
Sí.
¿Sí me pueden escuchar?
Sí.
Yeah.
Sí. Okay, pregunto en inglés o en español. No sé qué sea mejor.
Como tú quieras, hagas lo que hagas, me va a tocar traducir algo, así que diviértete.
Okay, well, I'll try to ask this in English. So I'm very glad to meet you, Mr. Altman, or at least to see you in this digital platform. I think my question is very simple. I hope, or I'm sorry if it's too innocent, maybe. But I'm trying to go to the first step, so to speak. So the question is, why is it necessary to read Plato or to understand Plato through or according to an order of reading Plato, or the dialogue order? Why is it not possible to, or maybe these two ways are compatible, to understand each dialogue as a whole, as an autonomous whole, so to speak? I think I haven't asked this question before, but maybe it's too important because it is too obvious in your interpretation, at least what I understand.
Good. You want to translate for these?
Sí, lo que he podido oír, corrígeme por favor si me equivoco, compañero. Estaba preguntando, comentaba que evidentemente puede haber dos formas de leer a Platón, teniendo en cuenta que hay un orden de lectura de los diálogos y por tanto hay una cronología en la lectura, o también leerlos como entidades autónomas cada uno de ellos. Y comentaba si las dos formas son válidas, creo que decías.
Sí, si son compatibles o de alguna manera se bloquean entre ellas, ¿no? If they avoid each other understanding.
So, excellent question. I mean, obviously, I've been asked that question or variations of it before, but one of the things I really liked about the way you phrased the question is that actually the first words out of your mouth was, why should we read Plato? And like, I thought you were going to stop there. Right? You know, why should we read Plato? Like, that's a pretty good question. Like, why should we read Plato? And, you know, I feel pretty comfortable about giving an answer to that. You know, why should we read Plato in Altman's reading order? Look, that's not important. The biggest merit of my reading order, as far as I see it, is that I have found a way to offer arguments for the authenticity of 1/4 of the Platonic corpus that had been run out of town since Schleiermacher in the early 19th century. If you count Plato's letters, my friend Rick's project, you've got 36 writings of Plato that have come down to us from antiquity, and fully 9 of them, including the letters, have been pronounced inauthentic. The Alcibiades Major, the Alcibiades Minor, the Rival Lovers, the Theages, the Cleitophon, the Letters, the Hipparchus, the Minos, and the Epinomis. That's 9 out of 36. And I remember my mathematics well enough to remember that that's 1/4 of 36. So in other words, the principal merit, it seems to me, of my reading order is it finds a reason for restoring to Plato 25% of the stuff that antiquity thought that he'd written, and that modern German, primarily modern German scholars, followed by their slavish followers in the United States, have decided are not by Plato. So, you know, if your question was, why read Plato's Hipparchus, or why read Plato's Alcibiades Major, like that, I feel more strongly about the fact that you should read Plato's Alcibiades Major than that you should read Plato's dialogues in Altman's reading.
Go for it.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, it's all right.
I was just talking to him.
Yeah. Lo que comenta el profesor es que si algún mérito tiene él en su trabajo que ha hecho, comentaba que la pregunta del compañero había empezado con un por qué leer Platón antes de elaborarlo un poco más. Y dice que si un mérito tiene es haber restaurado 1/4 del total del corpus platónico, porque de las 36 obras de Platón, 9 habían, incluidas algunas de las cartas, habían sido considerados como no auténticos durante el siglo XIX por parte de algunos investigadores alemanes que habían sido seguidos por otros americanos, y que si algún mérito tiene es restaurar todo ese corpus entero. Por tanto, que si la pregunta del compañero hubiera sido ¿por qué leer el Alcibíades, que se consideraba falso o no de Platón? La respuesta hubiera sido léelo, no hablemos ahora de órdenes de lectura, sino de leer a Platón, lee todo Platón.
Now, to go a step further in answering your question, which again, like I say, is a good one, and I guess I should go on the record as answering it, is that in the old days of Plato reading, that people tended to say that Plato believed everything that the major character in a dialogue said, that was just taken for granted, and that nobody made any effort to distinguish the characters and what they said, and to evaluate the dialogues on that basis.
En la vieja forma de leer a Platón, normalmente la gente consideraba que lo que decía el personaje principal del diálogo era el pensamiento de Platón, y se creía eso, y punto, no hacía falta ponerlo en contraposición unos diálogos con otros.
Although his motives were pretty much to subvert Platonism in its true form, Leo Strauss and his students have done a great service to Plato by paying a lot of attention to the dramatic details that are found in the Platonic dialogues that aren't what some character says, but are just structural little things that happen in the dialogues that Strauss and his students began to bring out of the darkness and emphasize as being important.
Y aunque Leo Strauss y sus estudiantes en realidad están intentando subvertir el mensaje platónico, hicieron una gran labor en intentar encontrar lo que se llamarían los aspectos dramáticos dentro de la lectura de los diálogos, intentando buscar esos pequeños detalles que dan un orden posible de lectura dentro de estructura dramática del total.
Now, I don't think Strauss's motives for or his students' motives for emphasizing these dramatic details were very praiseworthy or even true.
No cree que los motivos de Strauss y los estudiantes para hacer eso no sean especialmente valiosos.
But those dramatic details are there.
Pero esos detalles dramáticos existen.
And they're absolutely essential to my project of reconstructing the reading order of Plato's dialogue.
Y son totalmente esenciales en su proyecto de encontrar el orden de lectura correcto de los...
I have found a way to use those details to achieve not an anti-Platonic result, but a pro-Platonic result.
Le ha dado la vuelta, ha encontrado una forma de utilizar esos detalles dramáticos para hacer una lectura no antiplatónica como esta, sino proplatónica.
And since even though your question wasn't why read Plato,
Y aunque tu pregunta no fuera ¿por qué leer Platón?
I would still maintain that the reason to read Plato is that Plato is the greatest philosopher that ever set a pen to paper.
Bueno, la respuesta a esa pregunta sería que porque Platón es el mejor filósofo que ha quedado sobre el papel.
And that even if he weren't the greatest philosopher that set a pen to paper,
Y aunque no fuera el que mejor ha escrito,
that even if he lacked the dialectical brilliance of Hegel,
y aunque no tuviera la capacidad dialéctica de Hegel,
or the encyclopedic search for causes of Aristotle,
o la enciclopédica busca de causas de Aristóteles,
or the brilliant updating of Stoicism of Spinoza,
o esa actualización brillante del estoicismo,
or the highly deceptive Enlightenment version of Platonism provided by Kant,
o esa falsa actualización del platonismo que proporcionó,
to say nothing of the ladder of Wittgenstein,
por no hablar del último Wittgenstein,
or the being of Heidegger.
o el ser de Heidegger.
That even if he weren't the greatest philosopher compared to all those guys,
Aunque no fuera el mejor comparado con esos tipos,
there's never been a philosopher that was good a writer as he was, more entertaining and more capable of telling a good joke and a story.
nunca hubo un filósofo más divertido de leer, más entretenido y con más gracia contando chistes que él.
And that includes Friedrich Nietzsche, who's probably the most entertaining of the philosophers other than Plato.
Incluyendo a Nietzsche, que probablemente es el más divertido si quitamos a Platón.
So, given that there are a lot of reasons to read Plato, it seems to me,
Por tanto, dado que hay muchas razones para leer a Platón,
and since it seems to me that the best use of the dramatic details with which those dialogues abound is to use them more the way I'm using them than the way, say, Strauss and his students are using them.
y puesto que esos detalles dramáticos tienen un mejor uso en su forma de verlo que en
Especially since the previous 2,000 years before Strauss has basically ignored them entirely.
y además teniendo en cuenta que los 2000 años previos a Strauss habían ignorado totalmente esos detalles dramáticos.
You know, there's a nice passage in Shakespeare where this clown introduces his wife.
Hay un pasaje en Shakespeare donde un payaso introduce o presenta a su mujer.
And let's just say his wife is not that beautiful.
Digamos que su mujer no es muy bonita.
She's kind of a Raggedy Andy, like Raggedy Ann, like, I don't know what let's just say she's not beautiful.
Digamos que no es hermosa.
And some guy says, you know, I don't like her.
Y alguien dice, no me gusta.
I don't like her name.
No me gusta su nombre.
And, you know, the clown says, well, nobody was trying to please you when she was christened.
Ok, mira, nadie estaba intentando satisfacerte cuando la bautizaron.
And then he ends this discussion by pointing to his wife and say, a poor, ill-favored thing, sir.
Y acaba la discusión señalando a su mujer y diciendo alguien que ha sido poco favorecida.
But mine own.
Pero mía.
And that's the way I feel about my reading order.
Y es como se siente de su orden de lectura.
It took me a lot of fun. It took me a lot of time to come up with it.
Le ha llevado mucho tiempo llegar a él.
It's totally original.
Es totalmente original.
None of the Orthodox people think that it's worth considering at all.
Ningún ortodoxo le presta la mínima atención.
They think I'm a dope.
Creen que está tontísimo.
And I actually think they're dopes.
Y él piensa que ellos están tontísimos.
I had a lot of fun creating it.
Se lo ha pasado muy bien creándolo.
I made some excellent friends, at least in Valencia and Bogota, as a result of creating it.
Ha hecho muy buenos amigos en Valencia y en Bogotá como resultado.
I've got a dear friend here in Antonio Lastra who seems to enjoy reading my books
Tiene un gran amigo aquí en Antonio que parece que se divierte leyendo
and
sus
inviting
libros.
me around to, spout off the top of my head to very nice, excellent people like yourselves.
E invitándole a conocer a gente tan maravillosa.
I've got a beautiful and wonderful, talented translator who's translated my books
Sí, no.
into Spanish.
Maravillosa traductora que está traduciendo sus libros. al
I've got an
español.
extremely eloquent and very comical expurgator of my colorful discourse to translate for me impromptu,
Mete a mí,
extempore.
extempore.
So, who can hate any of that? Like it's all worked for me. And I've had fun doing it. And I'm not going to try to say that it's the truth. On the other hand, I believe it.
No va a decir que sea la verdad, pero él se lo cree.
It brings Plato alive for me.
Trae Platón a la vida para él.
And it helps me to imagine him as what I imagine him to be, which was a high school teacher
Le ayuda a pensar en él como lo que él cree que fue, como un profesor de instituto.
that wrote dialogues because they were entertaining
Y escribía diálogos porque eran entretenidos.
before sending his kids out to fight and die for Athens
Antes de mandar a sus muchachos a luchar y morir por Atenas.
and to recover the heroism of Marathon.
Y recuperar el heroísmo de Maratón.
When we marched out to fight the Persians for the first time, even though they outnumbered us 10-1,
Cuando marchamos contra los persas, aunque eran 10-1 contra
and
nosotros.
our spears and our breastplates and our shields shone in the sun.
Y nuestras armaduras y nuestras lanzas y nuestros escudos
Well,
brillan al
we
sol.
sailed off to that horrible fight in Sicily where we raced all the way to Aegina.
O cuando marchamos a esa terrible batalla en Sicilia.
The funny thing about Plato is he's such an innovative writer,
Lo bueno de Platón es que es un escritor tan innovador,
but he was pretty profoundly conservative.
pero al mismo tiempo era profundamente conservador.
At the risk of sounding like Trump, he wanted to make Athens great again.
A riesgo de parecer un poquito trampista, hay que hacer Atenas grande otra vez.
And so he grounded heroism and justice and beauty and nobility on something permanent.
Así que arraigó la nobleza, el heroísmo, el bien y la verdad en algo más importante, something more,
It was something more permanent
en algo más permanente.
than tradition
Que la
or what my
tradición.
daddy taught me or
Lo que
what
me
I was
enseñó.
brought up to believe. And in the result created this timeless education.
Y como resultado, creó esta educación
And
atemporal.
when we reflect that we wouldn't even have the word idea without Plato,
Si nos damos cuenta de que no tendríamos ni siquiera la palabra idea sin Platón
and we wouldn't have the word academics without Plato,
y que nunca tendríamos académicos sin Platón,
it seems to me that a guy that puts the Platonic idea at the dead center of Plato's teaching and shows what he actually taught in the academy in a plausible way on the basis of the only evidence that survives,
considera que alguien que pone las ideas en el centro de la enseñanza de Platón y que intenta organizar sus obras de la mejor manera posible, teniendo en cuenta lo único que nos ha llegado de él, que son sus propias obras,
and of course the unico testimony that survives is his actual writings, his dialogues.
puesto que su único testimonio es sus propios diálogos.
And so arranging those dialogues in a plausible, workable, pedagogical order
Y entonces organizarlos en esa forma plausible y pedagógica
seemed not only a very delightful pastime,
no es solamente un pasatiempo delicioso,
but very possibly of some interest to people in the future.
sino además quizá interesante para la gente del futuro.
Thanks for your question.
Vamos a acabar. Gracias a todos y vamos a votar. Hasta luego.